Be right here at Buzztv. It's a great day for us. I'm here with Lord Zane, and we're going to talk about this insane new documentary he has coming out. I watched it. It was insane. But the documentary is Everyone Dies, and that thing was just awesome. I just want to dive right into this thing because, you know, it's your story, and you know, I've known you for many years, and I honestly didn't know a lot of this stuff. And, you know, let's just start with the early days. I mean, we both grew up in the same area, same time frame. How did you fall into the whole porn thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was known back then you know, a lot of people don't know now. It was so long ago now, but my father actually had a production company, and was really my in. I mean, I didn't get into the same realm of the business that he was involved in. I wanted to do something creative, obviously being interested in film and music from a very young age, but he thankfully was in the industry, and I kind of utilized some of the relationships and knowledge that he had to place me in certain areas to become a director. So it was really just a stroke of luck that, you know, I was already kind of in it because of family connections.
You know, and doing that, and in those early days, and jumping to the music side, I'm still blown away where all the hate really came from. And the hate towards the band and you personally. You know, I understand that time of an era and pushing things to an extreme, and especially with Society One doing some really fun stuff. But, you know, and we've spoke about this through the years, but I really never imagined the kind of stuff that was going on. You know, is there really a specific spot or something that happened that did this? You know, it's just weird how it's like you're here, and then all of a sudden things change, and it's like the band didn't do anything different. You know, you didn't. It's not like there was a specific thing you or anyone else did. What did this?
I think it started all the way back on the local scene on the Sunset Strip. I mean, you've got to remember, if you don't know, I was around at the same exact time as Korn was trying to get signed, in Incubus, in Weezer, and the Deftones. I was playing the exact same clubs on the exact same weekends as all those other bands. And to go a step further, I was in school with Weezer, with the guy Rivers, the lead singer of Weezer. We were in big band together. I knew Incubus when they were in high school. I mean, I was really there with everybody in the beginning. The big difference, and where I think a lot of the animosity came from initially, was the fact that all those bands that I mentioned and more took the traditional routes of making it within the music industry. They played the same exact clubs, but they ultimately ended up selling them out and then getting a record deal and getting their notoriety and their success through a very standard path at that point in time, the early 90s, mid 90s. In me, I did it in a very different way. I did it in a way that nobody had ever done it before, that most people thought was absolutely insane and impossible. I did it through the realm of the adult industry, and then utilizing a lot of the money that I had to then self-release my first album, put us out on tour, and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of the other bands, you know, kind of looked at us and looked at me like, you know, they didn't play fair. They didn't go through the same type of hurdles that we had to do it. You know, he did it in an unfair way that we have no respect for. So I think that was like the initial issue. And then I think when the fame really started to hit, a lot of those same bands that I knew that were in some of my movies, you know, they started to get some, I'm not backlash, because a lot of them embraced it, but they didn't necessarily want to share the accolades that they were getting anymore with somebody like me, and I think that was where a lot of it came from. So initially, I just think it was just a lack of respect, and I think that continued on through the entirety of my career.
You know, and what's funny is, if you look at things today, bands now are pushing to be independent, release their own music, be in control of their destiny. And it's, you know, it's like, not that you knew, but you were such a pioneer because, again, you broke in doing it this way, where the whole industry's changed, and it's not like it used to be, and you know, you're scrambling to be able to do that sort of thing. And it's funny how today people don't look at that and say, hey, they were just way ahead of their time. And you know, if we could have done it that way, that might have been a smarter and better move too, but we didn't have whatever the resources were to do it. Now, you know, I also look at a lot of the extreme stuff you did, and especially with the suspension stuff. Guys, you need to check this thing out. You're going to see stuff that no one's done, and to this day, no one's done. And just with that, you know, I figured that should have opened up a million more doors, when it seems like, again, the haters came out because, I don't know if it was jealousy or insecurity or whatever it was, but, you know, it's always been like, Society One has been fighting this battle that they should have never fought, because the music's great, the crowd's always loved you guys, and it's certain people in the industry just, you know, played dirty. And again, with the last tour, we spoke about that, and we're actually going to do a Society One thing. It's just venues didn't line up for us. But I can't believe that they played the game just with the footprint that the band had and the rules, and that's not rock and roll. I mean, we've been around forever, and when music gets corporate, it's just not any fun. Here's I guess the big question. Is Society One going to actually tour again? Are we going to see you guys on the road?
I honestly don't know. I've been asked that in every interview that I've done since we're sending out the screeners, but it really depends, because obviously people haven't seen the movie yet because it's not out, but when you do, you'll see how difficult it was for us to go out there and tour again. Every step of the way was met with resistance on every single level. We had so many issues. And that last tour that we did was a big tour with big bands, and it should have been fun, and there should have been some type of feeling of celebration by the mere fact that the band has been around for more than 25 years. But it wasn't. It was miserable. It was probably the least favorite tour that I've ever done in my life. And it had to do with the fact of just the constant fighting that we had to go up against every single day, not only on the tour, but leading up to the tour. People were trying to get us kicked off that tour 3 weeks before it even started. And we discuss it in the film, and people understand what I'm talking about. But, you know, so when you put all that together, you've got to really ask yourself, like, is it really worth it? I mean, some bands will go, oh, there's no money, there's no this, but to me, it's nothing. That's a cakewalk compared to what we have to go up against. You know, people trying to get us kicked off tour, literally being given 12 inches by 12 inches of stage room to stand on the stage, to constrain me because of the worries of what I could do if I had more stage room. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think the movie has to come out, and then we just have to see what happens, and then I'll make a decision.
You know, and it's really a weird thing, because we've both been around, and back in the day, rock and roll was a fun thing. And though it's you date yourself a little going, oh, the 80s were so great, and they really were. And I'm a little bit older than most, so I'll even go back into the late 70s. It was such a free time, and I'm not just talking about drugs and partying, though that was a big part of music. I mean, backstage there was actually stuff happening backstage, to where now things have gotten so corporate and vanilla, and it's almost like you're afraid to do this or say that. And what rock and roll isn't what it is anymore. I mean, certain bands still have that freedom that are huge, but I could see other artists have to walk a tightrope sometimes because of the corporate shit. You guys never did that. And that's something that makes Society One such a really great act. Again, guys, if you haven't seen them, you better go find some YouTube videos of stuff they've done. The documentary stuff is great. The people that have been in the band through the years, there's been some great players, you know, and even the lineup to this day, the last lineup you had was a killer lineup. I mean, you know, so the music and the playing has never been, you know, anything other than stellar. With the documentary and telling the story, do you think this is going to curb any of the hate a little bit, or do you think the haters are still going to be there and just hate for whatever reason they have? You know, again, I'm looking at jealousy.
I don't know. I mean, at this point, I think that we're almost beyond that. And for people that don't know, I'm 50 years old, and it's getting to that point where it is what it is. And that's why I wanted to tell the story, because maybe when I was 40, 10 years ago, there was a possibility of things going one way or the other. But I think Society One is just going to go down in history ultimately as just that band that nobody in the actual industry liked or wanted to help or give a leg up or give any credit to. And it's just the way that it is. Now, what this documentary will do, I think the only possibility is really it appealing to a younger generation. And then maybe their perceptions shift and think about the band differently. But I think as far as our generation and the generation before and a little generation after, I think their minds are made up. I don't think that they're ever really going to change their opinion. It doesn't matter what you tell them or how much you try to elevate their opinion by new information. I was doing an interview last week, and I don't know why this came up. I think the guy asked, he goes, well, you know, what do you say to people that, you know, you had to do all these gimmicks because, you know, the music really wasn't there? And I go, well, you know, I don't think that we were Tool or Pantera, but I think the music was better than what most people give it credit for. But beyond that, the things that can't be argued, that are not subjective, is the fact that I've had some amazing players in my band. And at some points in my career, huge bands, I'll give you one great example, like Ministry, came in and stole half my band. That's how good my band was. My lineup during the Exit Through Fear era of the band was Paul Raven on bass and Sin Kieran on guitar. Al Jurgensen came in at that point and took half my band, and that became his band. So half of his band was Society One at one point. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I don't tell that story to say, oh, you know, look at me, I'm so cool, whatever. I tell that story to the haters that go, oh, you know, if you're telling me that my band sucks, then what you're saying is for those 7 years or whatever it was in Ministry, they sucked. Because it was the same band, you know? And that's one thing that can't be argued. You can say the music is good or bad or whatever, it's subjective. But the one thing you can't argue is that Al Jurgensen, an absolute legend, you know, I love Ministry, millions of records sold, wrote some of the greatest industrial songs of all time. At one point, he felt that he needed to upgrade his band, and he went and got my band. So, I mean, I can argue with people like that all the time, but, you know, it doesn't seem to change their opinion at all.
You know,
and to put it even crazier, the drummer in the band during the Exit Through Fear was Ivan DePrume. He was White Zombie's original drummer. He was on the first album that sold, you know, millions of records for White Zombie. So, I mean, that's just 3 members that I've had in my band at one point that went on to do or have done really amazing things.
You know, and I figure the person that asked that question really hasn't listened to a lot of Society 1 because, again, as I said, you've had some great players, and there's no question about the playmanship. Like you said, music is subjective, so it's either your flavor or not, but there's never a question about the talent of the people playing in the band. Myself, I never looked at the things that the band did as quote-unquote gimmicks. I looked at it as the band's doing original stuff. Again, in the era of shocking people or standing out or doing something that's a little different, a lot of things have been played out by the 80s. You know, how many times you're going to put on makeup? Or, you know what I mean? So many people, who's going to blow fire? You know who did that first? Pyro. Everyone could have pyro. You know, you push the envelope extremely hard with suspension. No one did that. I don't look at that as a gimmick. I look at that as pushing the envelope. A lot of the quote-unquote sexual stuff that happened on stage, I also don't look at that as a gimmick. I look at that as that's who you are. That's, at that point in time, you being on stage, that's who you are. That's not a gimmick. That's Matt Zane. That's Lord Zane on stage. Now, I'm sorry that it seems like it freaked people out or scared people or did whatever, but again, that's rock and roll. That's what an artist does. They push the envelope. With the movie that you know, that's due to be released, in fact, you know, we'll cover the release date. What's the goal now? You know, it's telling the story. Do you think the story is going to resonate with a younger crowd? Are they going to get what's going on? Because it really does tell a story of industrial blacklisting.
Yeah, I mean, right now in my life, it is at this point about telling the stories. And this movie is the beginning of a 3-part series that I already have planned to do. And this is just the first part. I just want my stories to be out there more than anything now, because people, for whatever reason, have done their best to suppress it and make sure that it's not told. One of the most upsetting things that I go through in my life every day now, it's not the fact if somebody listens or sees something that I've done and says, oh, I don't like that, I don't like you. That's fine. If you know who I am and you don't like what I do, then so be it. You can think that I suck, you can think that it's great, you know, but as long as you actually know that it exists. What really upsets me is when people don't know what I've done in the history of rock or in music or in shock rock history or whatever I've done. Nothing gets more frustrating when people see like one of my suspension performances up on TikTok or something, and you see these people comment, oh, this guy's ripping off Marilyn Manson. Like they just assume that Marilyn Manson had done suspension, you know? And I don't knock Marilyn Manson for anything that he's done at all, but there's certain things that he did and there's certain things that I did. But as far as all of it's concerned, it drives me insane when people just don't know. So I want the story to be out there. I hate to hear, oh, well, you know, you think this is crazy. You should see GGM. I love GGM. He did stuff that nobody ever did before him. He took a dump on stage. But that doesn't mean that he's done everything and then that ended. And that's the part of what we're trying to get across. We're saying in the movie, hey, Gigi's great, Alice Cooper's great, Jim Morrison's great, but it didn't end there. There was a guy, me, there was a band, Society 1, that did more. You can love it, you can hate it, but you should know about it. So at least you can have the full spectrum, the understanding really of what is out there and what's been done.
And you definitely need to see it because beside it being some wild stuff, it's some insanely fun stuff too. You know, from what's in the documentary, I see it and it's like, oh, I remember these days, I remember these times. And for you younger guys that didn't experience it, oh, you missed out. I think it's a great part one, because it really does open the door and tell the story a little bit. I can only imagine what footage you have through the years, and what's still going to come out. Now, something else I noticed, because in the documentary, there's a lot of people that have been in stuff in your past, and it seems like through the years, some of them try to shy away from it a little bit, which is funny because there's nothing that was done that if you were to look at it, you would be like, oh my God. It's not like an Epstein's Island type thing, where you're going to be blacklisted because you were seen with Matt Zane or in any of this stuff. I just think it's funny how at certain points of time people are so happy to throw their face out there on camera and then down the road try to run from it and pretend it doesn't exist. I mean, it's real easy to not comment and just not comment. You know, and I think you know the person I'm talking about, you know, but try to spin it around and paint you with a dirty brush was pretty chicken shit. You know what I mean? You know who I'm talking about. And as I said, I'm not going to spoil it. You need to watch the documentary. But do you think that to this day, those people are still actually voicing opinions?
Ask that again?
I said, to this day, do you think those people are still voicing opinions? You know, I know back in the day, they really, you know, try to spin it, paint you with a bad brush. Do you think, you know, like today, they actually care when they see, hey, Society One's is going to tour when you did the last Static X thing? Do you think any of those people actually voiced an opinion?
I know that a lot of them still have feelings, probably slightly more negative or negative feelings or apprehensions about being involved or dealing with me. There are specific people in this movie that I contacted that initially agreed to be involved and then ghosted or backed out. There was a lot of people like that. And I thought that after 20 years, 25 years, 30 years with some of these people, that wouldn't have been an issue anymore. We're just trying to tell a story, but they just didn't want to be involved because even the mere fact of them saying something negative about me would ultimately help the overall story of the movie. So they didn't want to even help in that way, even if it was meaning to talk about me in a negative fashion. So yeah, it was a wake-up call making this movie because, man, I knew people didn't like me and I knew people had issues with me, but when somebody hates you to the point where they won't even do an interview or give a quote because they're afraid that would even help out the movie and they don't want to even give you any chance of having success, you know, with what you're doing, I mean, it starts to sting. I mean, it's really tough. And I took meetings with certain people, they backed out later. I emailed certain people, they backed out later. Some people, you know, it was crazy. It was really surprising. But, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, it is what it is. I tell the story in the movie, and I came up against a lot. And yeah, so I guess to answer your question, yeah, people still have a lot of issues and a lot of problems with me and I think just me in general.
That's really insane because again, I've known you for years and it's like Matt's the nicest guy in the world. So I only chalk it up to insecurity and jealousy. Someone that was able to figure out a way to do something out of the normal. And sadly, in this day and age, that's the only way you're going to get ahead. You got to think outside of the box because the old ways are used up. So, important stuff. When is this documentary going to actually be released so they can see it?
February 14th, thunderflix.com. We're having the premiere the night before out in Hollywood. I'm incredibly excited about that. Big theater, you know, the whole bit, you know. So, dream come true. It's finally here, 2 years. And then everybody else will be able to see it the next day on Valentine's Day on thunderflix.com.
Okay, we're going to put a flashing link right down here, so you'll see it there in the descriptions everywhere. We're going to have a link. I assume you'll just be able to click into that, and it'll bring you right up into this thing. And again, you're going to watch it, you're going to see some wild, insane stuff. You're going to see a story that if you don't know, you're going to be amazed with and go, you know, how did a band that was this huge do this sort of stuff, magically get shuffled to the side? Because again, it's not like the band needed to break. The band pretty much did break. I mean, I saw some of the places you were playing and the crowds that you were in front of. So people knew of the band. Obviously, you're going to see a story of how Hate came out, ruled the day, and tried to bury someone who to this day still isn't going to lie down. You know, they'll tell the story, and with a little luck, you just might see something happen down the road. I'm amazed, you know, with it, because again, I've known you for years. We've actually had Society One on Buzztv a couple times when you did, you know, a smaller tour when it was just the band, and you know, those things are pricey. Even though you're playing a small club, you're going from town to town. Hopefully the band might do that at the very least somewhere down in the future, because again, I know the guys personally and I love them all, and I'd love to see the thing. Most important question, what did we leave out that they need to know about the documentary?
I'm sorry, say it again?
I'd say, what did we leave out that they need to know about the documentary?
I think for anybody that's on the fence and probably think that this is all hype and we're just friends and you're just saying all this stuff because you have to, I challenge anybody out there to watch the movie and then come back and try to tell me that there's another rock documentary like this in existence. There has never been one like this ever. And what I mean by that is if you go to any big band's rock documentaries, it doesn't matter if you're talking about Motley Crue or anybody else, they'll tell you stories and they may have a picture, they may have a couple of seconds of video, but for the most part, you've got to rely on believing them when they tell you the tales. In this documentary, we show you everything to prove that it happened. When we tell you about the band was into drugs, we show you the back of the rainbow doing blow. When we tell you that we had orgy parties after the shows, we show you we don't show you one orgy party, we show you like 2 or 3. When we tell you about bringing porn stars on the road on tour buses and having, you know, crazy times in hotel rooms, you get to see it. You get to see them in the showers, you get to see them on the beds. You know, nothing's left to the imagination. We will prove it to you that this happened. And that's what makes this documentary different than any other documentary that's ever come out before it.
And the fans loved the band. That's the thing. This wasn't something that was set up 20 years ago. When you see the live footage, you could see the fans loved everything the band did. So that was never an issue. It was the haters came out and found a way to bury something that was really great. Now, since you talked about a part 2 and a part 3, and you know, obviously the first one hasn't came out, but what would the second and third parts entail?
So so what I meant by 3 parts, it's not so much directly just about me and the band. It's going to just be about aspects of my life that I feel the story needs to be told. The second movie I can't discuss because I'm on a very specific contract right now that prohibits me from discussing until a couple other things happen over the next year. Then I'll be able to announce that movie. I'll start that movie probably in about 2 to 3 months. But I can tell you the third portion of the trilogy is actually going to be a prequel to this movie that comes out on Valentine's Day, and it's only going to solely focus on the first 5 years of the band, and it's only going to be in the porn years. And it's just going to really delve in for about an hour and a half just to those 5 years, because this movie, we talked about it for I think a total of 25 minutes, and there's more. There's more to tell and more to show. There's actually footage that didn't make the movie. And when we were going through it, we felt, you know, this could be a movie unto itself. So that's going to be part 3. In part 2, you'll know probably by probably get announced in 2026. So the next 2.5 years of my life are pretty much 2.5, 3 years of my life are pretty much wrapped up in these films.
You know, that's kind of a good thing. You know, I expect a lot of good things from this. Again, guys, you're going to watch it. You're going to see stuff you've never seen. And if I didn't like it and didn't think this was a great story, I wouldn't have called Matt for the interview. I just would have ghosted him. But the story's amazing. And the stuff that happened and the stuff you're going to see, it truly is unlike anything you've ever seen in a documentary. The closest thing to it, and I would say only because it's the closest thing to it, but there's still definitely wide different paths, would be, what is it, the Western civilization, you know, God, I'm breaking.
What, the Decline of Western Civilization Part 2?
Exactly. I'd say that's the closest thing to this, and that doesn't even come close to scratching the surface to what this is. But that's what you know, for anyone that doesn't know, it's not just a basic band documentary. It's not going to tell the story of, oh, this is how the guys met and they sat in a garage. This has some pretty fun and interesting stuff. Tells a great story. You see some insane shit. But again, it still comes down to the band and the tightness and the great music of the band. February 14th, everyone's going to be able to see it. Again, we're going to have links to everything down here so you can find it. With shooting it, obviously, because there was some new stuff, did you find, besides the people ghosting you, but was there any hassle? You know, was there any kind of a blowback on shooting, obviously, the new scenes that you edited with old footage? Was there issues shooting the movie at all? Yeah, meaning blowback. You know what I'm saying? The word obviously got out of who was doing what. You know, was there blowback, or was there forces that were actually trying to shut you down? Yeah, because because we started shooting the movie in October 2022. The tour wasn't until 2023 in February. So once word got out, immediately people came out of the woodwork and were trying to get it shut down right off the bat. And that's what you see in the movie. You know, within the first 5 minutes, I was sitting at my kitchen table. That's actually was at my kitchen when I still lived in Vegas. And I got the call about trying to get kicked off the tour. And it was because of the fact that word got out about the movie. And what I was told was, yeah, they didn't feel that we deserved to be having a movie being shot about us. And they wanted to get it shut down. So, yeah, you know, it was people trying to get the movie shut down within the first 6 months of it shooting. But then honestly, Brad, I mean, people started backing out of the movie after the tour, and they tried to shut it down even after we did the tour. I mean, we had the investor back out, we had both producers back out, and that was after we did 4 re-edits on the movie, trying to get it up to a place where a specific individual involved at the time would have agreed to still be a part of it. So, yeah, I mean, there was blowback on every single level that you can imagine. The crew that we had on the tour refused to sign a release and didn't want to be involved in it. That's why so many people's faces were blurred out, because it was just like they just thought, well, if we don't sign releases and we don't help out and we do this and we do that, he won't be able to finish it and he won't be able to put it out. But they didn't realize they were dealing with somebody that's been dealing with people like that for 30 years now. So I knew what I had to do. It took 4 re-edits and then a 5th re-edit, and then I had to blur out multiple people's faces and then get incredibly creative in editing in order to be able to get it done. But I did it, and it got done. So, you know, it's probably the greatest achievement that I've ever done in my creative career, despite all of the pushback and all the people doing the best they could to make sure that I couldn't finish this. You know, and I'm going to say, when you watch it, everybody's got a smart TV these days. Go to the browser, watch it that way, watch it on the big screen. You're gonna love this stuff. You know, if you don't know Matt's backstory, he's incredible with video. So the quality of this stuff is amazing. Sound quality's there. The story is just so unbelievable, but it's true. And that's the wildest thing, that you guys really need to understand how an incredible band can get shelved. Though it's happened through music history, but over childish and petty nonsense, over a lot of people hating because someone was just so ahead of their time and was able to do what everyone wants to do today, and that's release their stuff independently. You know, so I mean, I'm proud of you. I love the movie. They're gonna love the movie. Valentine's Day, I think, is a sweet day to watch it, because sit back with the one you love and watch a great story, cuddle up by a fire, and then do what you're gonna do, because, well, obviously it's in the movie as well. Before we end this again, is there anything we need to add to this thing? I think they need to, you know, everything's been told other than reviews that are coming. And I know you're going to have a ton of great reviews. You know, myself, again, I didn't share this with anyone, so I can't say, hey, everyone, all my friends loved it. But from people I have sent the trailers to, I only get great reviews. So I know you're starting to get them. In about 10 days from now, this thing's going to be out. So I can't wait to see it. So before we end it, anything you want to throw out there about the movie?
Yeah, you know, it's a challenge. I challenge everybody who's doubting everything that they're hearing or seeing in this interview and other interviews online to watch the movie, then come back to me and tell me if anything that we're talking about is hype. I'm just asking people to watch it, because it is an unbelievable story, and if you don't get to see it, you're still not going to believe it. And thankfully, I had just enough footage to be able to prove the story that I'm telling.
And it's a wild story, guys. So you're going to watch it, you're going to see some stuff, and you're going to actually go, damn, the 80s were wild. Because there's going to be, you've heard of stories, everything he said is true. You're going to see so many different things throughout this documentary. Myself, I didn't want to just throw spoilers out there and say, oh, there was this, and this. You're going to have to see it to believe it. It is one of the most insane stories in music, and it's only the beginning. So I can't wait for this to come out and you know, down the road to see the other parts. But I know you got things to do. I got things to do. I got to start editing, and we're going to get this thing out there, because again, February 14th this comes out, so you guys have days, you have times. Right down here is where you're going to hit the link. You're going to see it. You're going to see a story that is just beyond amazing. Matt, I thank you for your time, because I know you're a busy guy, especially in the middle of the week. Myself, well, you can see I got some downtime, but I'm in a good place, you know, in the men. But for myself, for Lord Zane, for Everybody Dies, and in fact, before we end, where'd you come up with the title for this?
So, Everyone Dies, Rockstars Don't Count. That was a song on Exit Through Fear. And to me, it just encapsulated really what this movie is all about. Everyone does die, but through what you see in the movie, it's kind of immortalized. And what we've done now is kind of immortalized. And that's not going to die. It's going to live on now. I finally have done it, you know, the first part, and it's going to live on beyond me. I truly believe that now at this point. Whether or not it happens immediately or if it happens 10 years from now, this thing is going to, it's going to outlive me.
Oh, it's going to be a cult classic. This is something that you're definitely right. It might not happen overnight. Unfortunately, it's probably going to happen after you're gone. That's how these things work. But this is going to be something down the road kids are still going to watch, and it's going to be one of those, he started this, he did that, and I get it. I mean, you know, being the first to do something is tough, but you've done some amazing stuff, caught it on video, and now once it's on video, and especially when it's out there on the web, you live forever. you know, and Society 1 is definitely going to live forever with some of the stuff they pulled off. Guys, you got to see it to believe it, because if I told you the story, you'd go, uh-huh. And then when you see it, you're going to shit yourself. Straight up, it's going to be, I can't believe someone did this stuff. If you're kind of a little squeamish, that makes it more fun, because you're going to be like, oh my God, that was just beyond amazing. So Matt, I can't wait for this thing to come out. I can't wait for them to see it. I can't wait for all the haters to really start throwing some hate out there, because to me, the haters only come out when you do it right. When you're a train wreck, nobody cares. But when you're doing it right, that's when the haters come out, because it shows they're jealous. And to be able to still do this all these years later, tell the story, and be in a good place where you are right now, that shows me you actually won the game. They don't know it yet, but they'll figure it out. So for me, for Matt Zane, for this insane new documentary that's out February 14th, Everyone Dies. Oh, I love that thing. The title's just amazing. We're out of here, guys. See ya.